Hello and welcome back to Pleat It Petite. My name is Elizabeth and today we are going to be doing another thrift flip. So what I'm planning to do with this video is showing you how you can take the Mimi G pattern in S8889, which is just this one, and make the shirt out of 2 pairs of linen trousers. So this pattern is part of the Mimi G style patterns with simplicity, and I've done so many of her patterns before, as you've probably seen in my previous videos. So these are the trousers that I have found. They are 2 of my mum's old pairs of trousers that she was throwing away because they don't fit her anymore. So these are the trousers. So I've got this pair here, so it's just a pair of grey long leg linen trousers, and I've got 2 pairs of these because my mum likes to buy things, and if she likes them she will buy more than one, but neither of them fit her anymore, so they have been given to me. So what I'm going to do now is get all my pattern pieces ready, seam rip the trousers completely so they're just open, and then I'm going to lay them out flat and see what we've got. What I have done is I have cut out all of the pattern pieces, cut it out in the interfacing, and done all of my notches and little dots. So I'm ready to start sewing now. So the first instruction is to stay stitch piece number 1 and piece number 2. So it will probably look a little bit confusing if you watch this back, but because the trouser pieces weren't big enough for some of the pieces, like piece number 1, what I've ended up doing is making it in 2 separate pieces and then stitching 2 pieces together, so there technically is another seam. The back I've done in 2 separate pieces where it should be on the fold, but all I've done is added like a 1/2 inch seam allowance down each of them and then stitch them together. So that's what I've done for piece number 1 and then the back, which I think is piece number 4. But apart from that, I was able to cut out everything completely how it should be, using 2 pairs of trousers, and I even had some left over. So step 2 is to form the pocket. So the instructions say to go along the fold line, and 6mm up from the top you're going to need to press down 6mm or 1/4 of an inch, and then turn it over and then fold along the fold line so it's kind of like a zigzag. And then what you're going to do is, with a 5/8 of an inch stitch, you're just going to go all the way down, across and up again to make the size of the pocket, and then we're going to fold it out after trimming away the seam allowance. I've just turned the pocket the right way around and then I've pressed the seams down. So all I'm going to do now is do the overstitching here so that the facing is secure, and then we're going to attach it to the front of the shirt. So the next instruction is to put the pleats in the back. So you should have marked at the top 2 pleat marks. So I've got my 2 here. So what you're going to do is mark the pleats away, so the 2 need to match up, and the pleat in the middle needs to face inwards. So that's going to go there. And I'm just going to put a pin in so that's secure. So then I'm going to take the yoke piece next and then match up the notches that you've marked on the top and just pin it to there and then stitch it across. next thing is that with the right sides together, what you're going to do is just pin the front and back together at the shoulder seams and then at the side seams up until the dots that you've marked. On the side here you should have marked a notch, and then this notch here you're going to stitch from right to the top to there and back stitch. This is what I think is going on. So you've obviously got your interfacing here, so you're going to need to face it to the other side. Okay. And then with your pattern piece here, you're going to mark along the stitching line. So there's obviously the interfacing fold line, the stitching line, and then the fold for the facing. So I think you're going to need to put the interfacing line on the edge after you folded it over, and then mark where the stitching line comes to. And then using your seam allowance at the bottom, you're just going to square that off. Okay, so now that I have put the stitching line here, all I'm going to do is just clip into here away at the seam allowance. So that's all gone now, and then into the corner so that you can fold it out completely. So I'm going to fold this out here, and then that gives you a nice clean edge. And now that I've ironed it down flat, what I'm going to do is just take a basting stitch and go all the way down along the line right close to the edge of the piece. Taking piece 11, which is our buttonhole guide, all I'm doing is laying it across the now closed up edge. I'm just going to mark everywhere where the buttonholes start and finish. After marking up all of my buttonholes, all I've done is started on the first buttonhole, so I've just done it on my machine, and then I'm going to rip open the inside just so that the buttons will be able to go through. Now that I've put my buttonholes in, what I'm going to do is turn it across so that that is facing the inside, so across the line for the facing. And then I'm going to go right to the bottom, and along here where you've done, you just need to stitch across there. Next you're just going to be taking the other side, so the side that we've got the pocket on, and you've also got your interfacing all the way down here. We're basically going to be doing exactly the same thing of literally just turning it in and then pressing it and then putting a basting stitch all the way down here. After you've stitched that down, you're going to do exactly the same as you did for the other step. Just turn it over and stitch along the bottom edge here. Now we're going to move on to doing the facing pieces, so that's piece 6 and piece 7. So what you're going to do is take the pieces where the notches are, so just pin them together across here, matching up the notches that we've marked there, and then up to the dot. All you're going to do is stitch across there and do that on this side, and then do it on the second side here as well. The next step is just to open everything out, so I'm just going to press down the seams here, and then I'm going to be taking a zigzag stitch and just going all the way across the top edge of the facing. What I'm doing next with the right sides together is I have pinned the facing onto the bottom of the top, and I'm just going from dot to stitch up just around the bottom edge. Don't go further than the dot, and then back stitch and finish, and then go to the other side and stitch onto the other side and do all of the 3 little sections. So after I've understitched the whole of the bottom edge, what you're going to do is go to the iron and then press it completely up, and then we're going to stitch the facing onto the top of the facing onto the shirt. So make sure that your front pieces aren't attached, and then just go from each corner all the way around the top of the facing right until you get to the last side. As you can see here, I've just finished doing the edge stitching around the facing, so that is all tacked down now, so that is out of the way. What we're going to do next is go to the side. So on the sides, they've got the buttonholes already. What you're going to do is fold that back, and then we're going to stitch along the stitching line, so it will be about 1 inch out, so that when it's finished the button placket will be like this, so it will be hidden away. And then for the other side, all we're going to do is stitch it, pin it back once, and then stitch it across the line here. So now that I have stitched down the placket at the front here, what I'm going to do is fold this over just like this along the front edge, and then at the top, so where your collar is, what you're going to do is put a pin in here and stitch this 6mm down so it will be tacked closed, and then at the bottom where it meets up, all you're going to do is take a hand needle and then do some basting stitches just so this whole thing is closed shut. The next step is taking piece number 8. So I've got my one piece that has the interfacing and then the one piece that doesn't. What we're going to do is take the piece with the interfacing, so put these to the side for a second, and then we're going to take the top edge of the shirt, and where the notches are on the right side, all you're going to do is match them up. So here and here are my notches. All you're going to do is match them up, pin it across the whole of the top edge, and then stitch along. Now you're going to take piece number 9, which is the collar piece, and one of these should again be interfaced. So I've done that, I've ironed it down and it's all secure. Then you're going to take the piece that isn't interfaced and lay them just over the top, and then we're going to pin them and stitch them down with a 3/8 of an inch across the two sides and the bottom edge, so the longer side. So make sure that you've matched up the notches at the top, but don't stitch this side up, just the two sides down here and the bottom seam. Next thing to do is just to clip the corners of the collar so we can turn it out. So make sure not to catch any of the stitching. Just clip those. So I'm going to just flip this the right way round. So make sure that the corners are completely turned out. You might need to get a pencil or something sharp that will just fill the edges out. So what you're going to do is understitch the seam allowance to the bottom edge of the collar, which will be the side that is not interfaced. So I'm going to take one stitch very close to the edge of the stitching that we've got here, just go as far as possible into the corners. After you have stitched it together and then put the understitching in, it should look like this. So what I'm going to do now is just press my seams down so everything's just flat, and then you're going to take a stitch that is 1 centimetre away from the raw edge and just baste the whole thing down. So now that you have your collar piece finished and pressed down, what you're going to do is attach it to the main body of the shirt. So with the understitching facing down, you're going to match it onto the shirt with the notches in the middle meeting at the same point, and then at the side where you've got your dots, that is where the edge of the collar is going to meet. So make sure that everything matches along the top edge, pin it down, and then do a seam of 1.5 centimeters. Taking the second of your piece 8, so the facing, what you're going to do is press under 1 centimetre, so that's exactly what I've done here, on the single notched edge, so the wider edge, and then put your collar down facing the rest of the top. And what we're going to do is just lay this on top, matching up all the notches again, pinning it with the seam allowance facing up. So match it completely to the other one, and then what we're going to do is enclose the collar inside the two facing pieces. So now that I have stitched down the facing, what I'm doing is I've turned it out and I have pinned down the facing to the inside, if you can see here. So that's all pinned down, and then all I'm going to do is take another hand needle and then do some stitching to stitch the facing down to the shirt. Now that the hand stitching is done and this is tacked down, you're just going to take a stitch and go around the other edges of the facing, so just around the side and all the way over to the top and down to the other side. Okay, well the last thing we need to do now is just get the sleeves done. So I've got the 2 sleeve pieces here, and what I'm going to do is take one of the sleeves and match together where the notches are at the side, so pin that closed, and then do exactly the same for the second one, and then pin it just down this side here. Then I'm going to stitch that with a seam allowance of 1.5 centimeters, so 5/8 of an inch, just down here. And then I'm going to take it to my iron and then open it out and press the bottom hem up 1.25 inches, so it will be a little bit shorter, and then under another 6 millimeters at the bottom, so we've got no raw edge showing. And then after that, I'm just going to stay stitch the top of the sleeve 6 millimeters away from the edge. Right, so what we need to do now is attach the sleeves to the body itself. So as you can see here, I've just got my armhole. So what you're going to do is find the bottom part of it, and then you're going to take your sleeve with the right side out, and what I'm going to do first is line the bottom seam up with the bottom seam of the sleeve with all of the seam allowances faced open. So I'm going to just pin this one here very quickly, and then turn it to the inside. So we're inside out now, and then all I'm going to do is match up the top dot that you've put on with the shoulder seam, and then the other 2 dots with the other 2 dots, and then just go around, and then I'm going to stitch around the armhole twice, so 2 rows, 1 1 centimeter away and 1 1.5 centimeters away. Last thing to do is just to add the buttonhole on the facing, so I'm just going to do that here, and then on the side, on the plain side, you're just going to match up your buttonholes on the placket here and put your buttonholes on, and then you are completely done. Hi, so you've made it to the end of the video. So I hope that you like the shirt that I've made. It's the first thing I've actually made in linen before. I didn't have any problems with it at all, just it does fray a lot, so obviously if you're going to be using it, you've got to know that it's going to fray. But apart from that, it was actually perfect to work with. I didn't have any problems with making them from the trousers with the seams. Like at the front it is a little bit bulky where the seam allowance is, but it doesn't like give a different effect on the finished garment, so I wouldn't say it's a huge problem. I also really like that the back is a lot lower than the front, purely because I have larger hips and a smaller waist, so it kind of evens me out a little bit, and the shoulders are quite broad. I don't know if it's just because I haven't cut the seam allowances, but they kind of give me more of an hourglass shape, which I kind of like. Yeah, I'm really excited to wear this to work when I can go back. I would say that you'd need to have sort of like intermediate skills to do this, purely because the collar is quite tricky. I don't think there's anything too difficult to do here, because I've made a men's shirt before and it was a lot more difficult. But yeah, I really love this top, and I want to make it in some cottons as well. Just some pattern cottons, see what I can do with it. But yeah, I'll definitely be making this pattern again if I have time. So I really hope you enjoyed the sew along, and I hope you like the video, give it a thumbs up, and then subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content from me, more sewing, more DIYs, some thrift flips, some thrift hauls. Let me know in the comments if there's anything in particular you'd like me to do, and I will see if I can do that for you. So like, subscribe, comment down below, go follow my Instagram as well at Pleat It Petite, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Bye!